GoToWebinar panel that you have, everyone has on their screen. There's a little section in there where you can type in questions. Feel free to type in any questions that you have along the way. I'll try and answer them as we go. If I seem to be ignoring you, don't worry, I'll circle back and answer any questions that you have before we finish the call today. So again, we're talking a little bit about the proposal generator. We're going to focus on that section of the toolkit and focus on how you can jump in and use it, and where you can kind of go with it as you build proposals in the toolkit. So let's jump into the proposal generator now. And the first thing that we see here on the page is just the most recent proposals that I've been working with. Certainly if you've created other proposals, if you've kind of built them and stored them in the system, you can use these options up here at the top of the page to search by the name of the proposal, and that'll bring up just a specific proposal. Or you can just have all of your proposals listed in the system and kind of go from there. But again, the most common use is to jump in and work with a most recent proposal, so that's why you have the 10 most recent proposals listed on the page here. So let's start from scratch and build a brand new proposal in the system. And the way that you do that, obviously, is by clicking on the Create button on the right side of the page. We have a few options that we can fill in. The first one is pretty important, the name of the proposal. So we'll call this New Proposal, and we'll see if I haven't already created one named New Proposal in a second here. But the name of the proposal is really all you need. All the other options here are optional, but let's just review them. So the proposal type, the default is a 401k plan proposal type, but you can switch it over to a portfolio. That's going to change the report that you get when you actually produce a proposal. So we'll just leave that on the default 401k plan for now. The next two options, the first and second set of holdings, how would you like to refer to them? The default, again, is current and proposed, but we can always change this. So go with lineup A, lineup B, and we'll see how those things change in the interface and in the report as well. So again, you can name these however you want. Maybe you name them lineup A, lineup B. Maybe you're working with particular platforms, so you name this maybe the John Hancock. Maybe you name this the open-ended mutual fund lineup. However you want to name the two sets of lineups that you have in the proposal, you can do that here. Next option is custom due diligence. If you want to include custom due diligence in your proposal, you can do that. You can just switch that on and then select the custom due diligence that you want to include. And then if you want to add a blended benchmark, this is particularly helpful in the proposal, not so much with a 401k plan, but if you wanted to add a benchmark, you can add that into your report, and there's a portfolio, or excuse me, a growth of $10,000 chart that you can add into your proposal. All right, let's hit start, and this will take us into the process. We see here that lineup A, lineup B are listed here on the two tabs at the top. And as you can also hopefully see that there's 1, 2, and 3. There's really 3 steps in this proposal process. Defining lineup A, defining lineup B, or again the current and proposed lineups, and then how we want to go through the mapping. So let's take a look at and go through this as in order again. But just keep in mind that once you get a hang of this, it's a pretty simple 3-step process to go through. So defining lineup A and lineup B, or again the current and proposed lineups, pretty simple process. There's 4 options that you can use to build the lineup in the system. And then this one kind of other option up here, the custom universe. So if you're familiar with the custom universe, you can build this into the toolkit. There's an option up here under My List and Custom Universe. And what this will help you to do is, again, if you're working with a custom universe, if you've uploaded a custom universe, this will help to identify funds that are not part of the custom universe. So we'll switch this off and on to see how that works in a second, but for now I'm just going to leave it off and not provide a restriction. Now, the way that you can populate lineup A is, again, listed here down below. There are 4 options that you can go through. One is by uploading a client from the My Client section if you've already built a client in the system. Another option is with an Excel spreadsheet. A third option is combining a recommended fund list and model. And then the fourth option is with the kind of starting from scratch, just typing in the investments as you go and moving into the system pretty quickly. Let's take a look at it in detail and see what these 4 options look like. So if we click on the import the holdings from a client, this is going to give you the ability to just pull in a client from the system. These are clients already built into my account again in My Clients. I can just select a client, and it's going to import the most recent holdings lineup for that client into the proposal. So I click on import. Here's the most recent lineup. All the investments are pulled into the system, and you can move on from there. Pretty simple and straightforward if you have that client built in. Now, let's, again, go back and take a look at the other options. And at any time, if you go into the system and you see this, and you're in this section here, and you know that you pulled in the wrong client, or you're just not certain of where this information came from, you can always go over here to this Restart Step 1, erase the lineup, and get back to this main page here. Again, we clicked on the way to import the clients into the system from My Clients. The next option is uploading an Excel spreadsheet. So if you're familiar with this from the holdings area, you can choose a file from your desktop and load that spreadsheet into the system, which I will hold off from doing for now, and load that into the system just like you did with the client lineup. The third option is combining a recommended list with a model that you've built into the system. So this is a nice way to really kind of standardize your process and build a standard system into the proposal generation process. And we're in lineup A. And again, this may be the current lineup that you're currently working with. So you may not be using this recommended list and model combo right here in this lineup A. You're probably going to more likely use this in lineup B, which is, again, your proposed lineup. So again, we'll just cover it here, but keep in mind that you're probably going to be using it when you populate the lineup B more so than lineup A. But again, all you're doing is selecting a model that you've built into the system. So we have these models that we can build in the My Model section. We won't go into detail there, but again, you're just building the model in there. And this is defining the asset class and the percentage allocation. And you're combining that with a recommended fund list. So similar to that universe that we talked about, there's another area under My List called Recommended Fund List. You can build an approved funds list and just a lineup of funds that you want to work with, maybe a buy list, you may call it. And what you're doing is combining this model and list together. It's going to look at the asset classes that you've selected in the model, and it's going to run through this list and find the investments in those asset classes. And when you click Combine, it's going to pull those items together and build that model. So we have the clients, the Excel spreadsheet, model, and list combination, and then starting from scratch. So if I want to start from a blank slate, I can jump in here and type in the ticker symbol. Again, I can always click the erase and start over, start again. So let's go and just select a client like I did before, just to move on to the next step. Select Alex again. And again, this is our current lineup. So again, we're still in lineup A. We're still in that first step, and we have this lineup A. So again, this is the list of investments we know we want to have as our first lineup in the proposal. From here, we can modify this list if we want to. Over on the right side of the page, maybe there's one more fund that you want to add in. Add that investment in. Maybe there's an investment that you want to remove. You can remove that investment and kind of work through that process to finalize the list. So again, after you pull in that Excel spreadsheet or client or combine the model and list, you can always continue to modify that and refine that to get the final lineup or current lineup that you want. Just to highlight that custom universe that we talked about briefly before, again, this is a nice way to kind of give you the ability to turn on and off the ability to see which investments are a part of your universe. So say we have this TV platform. If we take this link here and switch that to using the custom universe, what this is going to do, and again, this isn't a very good example, but this will help to highlight in this status column here on the main page which investments are not part of that custom universe. So again, if you're pulling in a list of investments, and again, this is particularly helpful in lineup B, but if you're pulling in a list of investments and you want to ensure that the investments are available for your client, you can add this custom universe on, and all these little caution signs will come up if the funds that you added in here are not part of the universe. So again, something that's helpful if you wanted to kind of do a quick screen, but again, it's not part of the final process if you don't want it to be. The last thing that we can look at in this model area is this model portfolio tab. So again, we're still in lineup A, but if we have the investment tab and then this model portfolio tab. So if this lineup A also includes model portfolios and they've been built into the toolkit, we can jump into our list of models and select those models that we want to add into our proposal, and then this will list the models in the system as well. Then we can fill in the number of participants and assets invested, and the model, some summary statistics of the model, and these model details will all be added into the proposal as part of lineup A. I'm just going to remove these for now. And this is all part of this lineup A and these options that we can go through in lineup A, adding the models, further refining the final lineup, checking out the universe to ensure that the investments we have here are part of the universe, and then really all we need to do is move on to step 2. Step 2 with your proposed lineup, or in our case here, lineup B as I've called it, we have those same options again that we had in lineup A. Pulling in the information from the client lineup, uploading an Excel spreadsheet, combining the model and list, or starting from scratch again. So just to give you a different flavor, I'm going to combine my list and model. So I can select my model, select my list, enter in dollar values, and then hit combine. So again, what happened here was that model and list that I selected, it looked at the model, it looked at the asset classes as part of the model, and then it searched through the list and found the investments that were part of the, or had, or kind of fell into those peer groups. So pulled all of that information in and added that as part of my new proposed lineup. So we can go in and again, assign the model portfolio if we want to. But again, we can kind of move on from here. So again, we spent some time going through lineup A and lineup B, but we go back and see, again, I'll just do this one more time. It's really a simple process of pulling this information in from any of the different areas. The only time it's going to take a few minutes is if you are typing in the tickers or pulling in the investments into the process. So really defining lineup A and lineup B are pretty quick and simple processes in this proposal generation process. Let's move on to step 3 and look at the mapping options in the final proposal. And there are 3 options that we have between mapping lineup A and lineup B. If we have these three options here again, these are a little bit different from lineup A and lineup B because we're going to combine lineup A and lineup B and compare the two. And we can do that comparison or mapping in a couple different ways. So the very last option in this list is I don't want to make any comparisons. I just want to show static side-by-side options in my final report. So we can always click on that. Our report will be complete, and then we can print the report. But these first two options are pretty darn helpful in the process. And the first option here, we'll click on first, and we'll go through just a simple one or two sample review of this. Now this is the mapping option. And this is particularly helpful if you're working with a 401k plan and you want to show where the assets are going from lineup A into lineup B. So we have $1 million in lineup A. How is that $1 million being translated into the new lineup in dollar B? So this lineup A is listed here on this main page. We have the investments. And then again, since we pulled this in from a client, we have the dollar values pulled in from the My Clients area. So we see here that Alger Capital Appreciation for this client has the exact dollar value coming in. So we have $323,000 that we have to allocate to the new lineup. So to map that information over, all we need to do is click on this Add button. And when we click on that, this little pop-up is going to appear. And in this drop-down here, we have a list of all the proposed lineups options. So from here, we're actually selecting the investment that we want to map to. So we have this Alger Capital Appreciation Fund here. And maybe, for example, we want to map it to this Vanguard Wellington, for example. So again, we've selected this Vanguard Wellington, and it's going to default put all $323,000 into that Vanguard Wellington. And maybe that's what we want to do, map from this Alger to Vanguard. So click Save, and we see our little checkbox appear. It means everything worked. And that's our process. We're going to go through each investment and add that checkbox in. We'll just go through a couple more examples here, but in the end, this is what we're going to get, a full lineup of green checks in this mapping process. Another example of this is looking at this Delaware small cap. So again, we can click on Add to start the mapping process. And this Delaware small cap value, again, we have $135,000 that we need to map over. Maybe we want to map between two funds. So I can select two funds here and look at that. So now we have 135 in the first one and nothing in the second one. Maybe we just want to do 100,000 and 35,000. So hit Save and Close. Again, we've mapped that. And again, we're mapping from one fund to two funds now. So if we hit Save and Close, that mapping is complete, and we can finish that process. The next fund we have is this DWS Unconstrained Income. Again, just to give you an example of what's going on, if we wanted to map between two funds, for example, and again, we're going through the process, and we map in $200,000 and hit Save and Close. Again, we need to map 227, but we're only mapping 200 right now. We hit that. There is a mapping, but again, it's not going to be turned into a green check until we go back and add in all $227,000. And we can go through that process there. So again, making sure that the dollar value in the current lineup matches the dollar value of the proposed lineup is the best way to ensure that those green checks appear down the lineup. So just another example of a way you can go through this mapping is to, actually there's a couple options over here, but I just want to switch over to this Enter Percentages instead of dollar values. If we click on that button, it's going to switch us over and look at percentages now, both in the current and proposed lineup. So another way to do this, and we can even go back into our few that we've mapped already, is to look at this $323,000. We click on that. Actually, let me cancel that. Let's do this second one, that's Delaware. So we click on that, And instead of doing it on a dollar value basis, maybe we just do 50/50. So it's going to calculate the exact dollar value and hit save. And again, now we're still mapping the exact value, but we're doing it on a percentage basis, particularly with the proposed lineup. So again, if you have a specific dollar value and you need to map it and split it evenly, let's take this Oppenheimer Developing Markets again for just one more spin. Say we want to map it between 3 funds. We can go in here and do 33, 33, and 34. And we can quickly map and split that up into thirds as close as we can and have that final in our process. Last option, again, we hopefully saw in this edit dollar amount options over on the right side, is map without dollar values. So maybe you want to show the mapping, but you don't want to show the specific value. You just want to show, again, one fund, we're going to move the assets, whatever that value is, into the new proposed lineup. So we can click on map without assets. It's going to wipe everything out. And here we can just go in, select 3 funds, and now it's just going to map this one fund to those 3 funds without having to go through any calculations of the exact dollar value or the percentages. You're just doing a mapping of one fund to many, or however you wanted to do that. All right, so again, going through this mapping, we'll have to make sure this mapping lineup has all green check marks before we can complete the process. But even now, we can just hit save, and it's going to save the process. So maybe you need to go do something else. You can come back, and this mapping is going to be still stored here, kind of with your work in progress, and you can come back in. And so let's kind of go into our new proposal. We can jump back into our new proposal. We see that the status is in progress. And again, our mapping progress that we're working through is still in progress, but we still can't click the complete button. So the complete button, again, we have it up here, but it's not highlighted. We can't actually work with that final proposal until we complete the process. All right. There's a question here. All right, a couple of questions on the mapping. One was mapping options, and they also include a peer group. So when we have this listed up here, we're just listing the investments right now. That is something that we do have on our enhancement list to add, but again, right now we're only listing the investment, not the peer group as well, but we definitely want to get that added into the proposal. And then just another question about mapping, going from 2 funds to 1 proposed fund. So I didn't really go through that, but again, just like you're going through and selecting 2 investments, it's or going from 1 fund to multiple funds. You can certainly go from multiple funds to 1 fund, and all you need to do is, again, select. So let's say these last 2 funds down here below. We have this Schwab indexed and this Waddle and Reed. So we want to map those 2 funds to the exact same fund. So this MFS value and Waddle and Reed. Really, it's whatever you want to select in this pop-up. In effect, you're taking these 2 funds and mapping them to the exact same fund in the final process, and that'll show in the reports. So again, you can map from 2 funds down to 1 fund and have that store and work in the reports as well. All right, so again, the mapping process. A few different things that go on here, a few different ways to map with the dollars, with the percentages, or just mapping the funds overall. But this is where you'd want to go through that mapping process and kind of work through that if you wanted to do that. And I can always click my erase mapping and start over. And what I want to do now is take a look at this allocation one. So again, we have this mapping option that we looked at. Now we'll just look at the second way to map, and this is more with allocation. So don't read too much into these dollar values, especially since they're different, but kind of want to give you an idea of how to work through this. So again, if we go through this mapping option, really this is looking at the allocations now. So if you're building a proposal that is highlighting different allocation changes, or again just simply building maybe this is 100% cash and you're recommending a new lineup, that's how this is the section you'd want to go into. And again, this can be done on a dollar value basis or a percentage basis. And to switch between those two entry methods, we'll just go to the right side of the page and click on that link, and it's going to switch back and forth between the two. So again, these dollar values came through based on the client that I pulled in and that mapping between the recommended fund list and the model that I pulled in. Again, they're not 100% the same just because I was typing things in the same, but really to get them the same, all we need to do is switch over and type in the exact value again. So 3, and now they're the same. So what you can do here is, again, this is their current lineup and current allocation in our example here. And maybe there's a recommendation of going through and looking at the allocation differently. Now, obviously, this isn't an allocation that you would probably want to do. But again, I'm just typing in numbers for an example. And really all I've done is, again, enter the percentages and have that work through. And then I can save the values. So again, I'm just going through looking at this as the current lineup, looking at this and entering the total value from the current lineup, and entering the allocation that I want to provide. Again, this is going to calculate a percentage based off of the client that you pull in, off of the Excel spreadsheet that you load if you entered one, or again, that model or list is going to calculate that as well and give you exactly what you need to work through that process. So again, I mentioned that complete button earlier. So if we switch that value and hit save, you'll see that complete button goes away. So both in this section and that mapping section, all of the dollars need to line up exactly, or that complete button won't appear. So just switch it back again. I'll enter that. I'll hit the save button. And now we see that the complete button is available again. We can click it here or over here. But once we click complete, the proposal is done and we can produce the report. So again, clicking that complete button is the kind of function that turns on the reporting for us. Again, if we kind of go back and we'll just change this and hit save. And again, we go back to the main page here, this same new proposal that we're working on. Again, we don't have these PDF or Excel icons, so we can't produce a report until everything is finalized and we click that complete button. Well, let's go back in one more time. On our edit link here, make the adjustment for it to go back. All right. Save values and complete. All right. Now we have our complete proposal, and we have our proposal report to print. Now, one final thing that you may want to work through before you print your report is commentary. If you wanted to add commentary to the report, you can add commentary we call executive summary commentary or closing commentary. And this information, so is going to be at the beginning and Closing commentary is going to be at the end. So we'll see where that comes into play when we run the report. But one more thing that you may want to look at before you run the report. And then we can produce the report. So we can click on the PDF link. And we have a couple different options here. I'm going to add everything just for now. But on the left side of this page, you can add some general report settings like the page numbers, the cover page, just a cover page disclosure, which will pull from the settings area, the logo, which will pull from the settings area, back page disclosure, and the client name at the top of the report. The specific sections that you can add into the report are, again, table of contents, the executive summary, if you added that commentary in, a holding summary, style analysis, performance, and I'll just add everything right now. This IPS watch list, if you added the custom due diligence, the closing commentary, and then the action item. So let's produce this report. Another thing that we can also produce here is an Excel spreadsheet. If I produce this and pull this up here, this will give you a nice output if you need to take this information and do something with it. So this Excel spreadsheet in the tabs are going to give you the current lineup and the proposed lineup. And I don't have an example here, but if I had the mapping, I'd have that mapping appear here as well. So I know everyone's going to go try and do all this today. There is a small bug in this Excel spreadsheet that we're actually going to be updating tomorrow night for everyone on the call today. So look for that. If you click on that and you get an error, we'll be fixing that very shortly. But again, most instances, you'll have this report, and it'll run just fine without any issues. One more thing that I wanted to touch on, actually, since we produced our report already, but certainly helpful right now, is so we created this new proposal. We see this linked client already in here. And this linked client was automatically pulled in based on the fact that we pulled in that client data into our current lineup. But really, you can change this anytime and link this to any client in the toolkit. So if you want to link it to a 401k plan. And this is going to do two things. One is, again, as we pull up our proposal, this will just give or display the client contact information on the cover page. So to have the client's contact information, you need to have a client built into the system and then link them to the report. And then the second thing I'll go into just a second. It has to do with the status area, which we'll cover in just a moment. All right, so I have our proposal, and we can go through this report now. So if you've seen our reports, you've probably seen an example of this online already. But again, so I won't go through this too much, but all this information here is pretty straightforward. The cover page of the report, again, this information coming from that linked client, your information, service providers, coming from that linked client as well. So the table of contents, that executive summary information, if you type that in, will come into the report. And then the holding summary. So here we see lineup A, lineup B, current, proposed, however you want you're naming the report, it'll come in through here. But again, this report will kind of go through these different sections that we'll kind of touch on and show the current lineup against the proposed lineup. It'll be, again, side by side, the way this report is showing here. Side by side in the style analysis. Some of them will be side by side within the graph. So if you're doing this growth of $10,000, it'll show side by side in this graph here. Other sections, like this standardized performance, will show side by side within the peer group. So we have these 3 funds that we are recommending be replaced. these three funds are recommending that we're recommending that they be added into the lineup. We can get a good comparison side by side to see the differences between the current and proposed. Don't have an example here, but again, you can see in the legend, lineup A is going to be identified with the red box. Lineup B is going to be identified with the green box. And then if there's a fund that's in the current lineup and you're recommending that it'll stay in the proposed lineup, it'll be highlighted with the blue box. So side by side within the report, a couple different ways again. Within the peer group, side by side in this expense example, and again throughout the report. So again, there's these sections are pretty common throughout the toolkit, so I won't go into any detail. But again, you're just looking at the information side by side in this report now, as opposed to the other information. So this is one example of the final action item section in the report. And again, if you recall, we were doing the allocation changes between the current and proposed, or the lineup A and lineup B. So here we have, again, we're doing a wholesale change. We have all the investments that we're recommending be removed, and all the investments that we're recommending to add into the lineup. And again, if there were any funds that were the same between current and proposed, they'd be in this middle category here. So if you're doing this allocation, this will show the differences between the allocation between current and proposed in this dollar value figure. If you're doing the mapping option, pull up a sample here. Scroll to the bottom, so give me just a second here. If you're doing the mapping option, this is going to list the map funds from the current lineup on the left side of this report, kind of highlighted in this tan, and then the proposed lineup just highlighted in white. So again, in this example, it's going to give you the current investment, and then the 4 funds in this example where it's being recommended to be moved over. So again, from example of 1 to many funds. Let's see, an example here of 1 fund to 1 other fund. And I may not have it in here, but again, this will also show, again, if 1 fund is being kind of moved into a single fund, you'll see that single fund listed in here, and show that many to 1 kind of option listed in here. Another question on the proposal, and I can pull up the example again, but question on the expenses in this report here. So the expenses that we have listed in this report are the expenses that we pull in from Morningstar. And if you're familiar with the client section of the toolkit, you can actually go in and add a whole bunch of different revenue sharing components and customize the expenses to really highlight and show the exact expenses for a particular plan. We don't currently pull that information into the proposal, but that is a planned upgrade into the proposal. So that is something that we do want to add into the report as well. All right, so just a few more minutes on the proposal. Again, we went through the process, we looked at the reports, and again, the last section that we want to look at is the status. This is kind of a more recent development that we added, but it really helps to kind of manage your proposals if you choose to do so. So we see here a couple listed rejected or accepted, or this one again is in development. So 9 times out of 10, if you're working in a report and you haven't yet clicked that complete button, you'll see that it's in development. So in this example here, we can click on example. We can change the current proposed lineup, change the mapping. and can see here that the mapping is in progress, and finalize the proposal and complete the process. So once you click on that complete button and the reports are available for production, you'll see that the status changes to ready to submit. And it actually becomes a link here that we can click on. So not only can you run the report now, but you can also click on this ready to submit. And this actually opens up kind of a workflow that you can use to track the progress of the proposal. So step one is that we actually completed the proposal, and it gives you the date of the proposal completion. Step two is when you submitted it to a client. So say you submitted it to a client and you did it not today, but you submitted it tomorrow. You can see the turnaround time. And then step three is when the client actually came back with their recommendations. So again, we're working in future time here, but they came back with a recommendation or a final status on the 31st. And they are either accepting that proposal or rejecting it. So accepting it is actually going to do kind of an overhaul of the client in the toolkit for you automatically. So again, we link this client to Alex Anderson. So if we click accept and hit save, it's going to take that most recent portfolio and override it with our new proposed lineup. So really, and you don't have to do anything in the toolkit in the clients area. It's going to make those changes for you. If you hit rejected, you have some other options here. One is you can create a new copy of the proposal, or you don't want to create a new copy of the proposal. And this gives you kind of expectations twofold. One is, again, you may just want to say, I'm done with this client. They are not going to accept any proposal that I make. You can file that and store that in the system, and it's going to give you this rejected status. Oops, I forgot to hit my save here. So again, we can go from ready to submit to submitted, and then our review where it's either accepted or rejected. Now you may want to create a copy of this and submit it in another bid. So we can click on save, and it's going to create an exact copy of that. Again, we have our new proposal here, or excuse me, I guess I was working with Alex Anderson here. We see that that first copy was rejected, but we have this new copy with, we can go in, make the adjustments, and kind of go through that process again. So real quick, last thing, what if we didn't make this copy of the proposal, and let's just delete it to make our expectation reality, and say we rejected that proposal, but actually a week later we came back and that client actually wanted for us to submit another bid, and we've rejected it. Well, how do we kind of create a new proposal based off of this work that we already did? All we need to do is go over to create a new proposal. On the right side of the page, click the copy button and select the proposal to create our new one. So I'll have to give it a new name. We can select these options if we want and hit copy. And again, it's going to copy everything. We're going to go through the mapping option one more time, but that's going to give us that final copy that we can work through in our process. So that about wraps everything up. Again, I went through all the details of the proposal. Hopefully that will give you a good sense of different ways that you can work on the toolkit in the proposal generator. Again, creating that process, all the different options that you have in the process, reviewing the proposal reports, and then how you can use this status column to kind of manage your proposals in the toolkit. With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up today. If there are any other questions, I'll stay on the line for just another moment or two and see if there are any questions. But as always, if you have questions about the proposal or the toolkit in general, I encourage you to go to the Help Center. We have some tutorials, short videos and guides about the toolkit in general. And feel free to always send us an email to tools@fi360.com or give us a call. And if you have a question, feel free to type it into the GoToWebinar console. There's a little section where you can type in questions, and that'll send it over to me. Question on webinars. Again, we always have webinars listed in our Help Center. We update that on a monthly basis. So check back in the Help Center for our next schedule, which we'll be releasing very shortly. And if you aren't already subscribed to the news and notes, you'll see that in the news and notes as well. All right, well, I'm going to wrap everything up. Again, thank you, everyone, for attending today, and have a great day.